The forgotten artifact. The wind howled across the desolate landscape of Meridian 9, a planet that had long since forgotten the warmth of hope. Kai trudged through the twisted metal graveyard, her weathered boots crunching against shards of forgotten technology. At 16, she had known nothing but survival, a constant dance between scavenging and avoiding the corporate patrols that claimed ownership of every remaining resource. Her eyes, steel gray and sharp, scanned the horizon. The research station loomed in the distance, a skeletal structure of rusted metal and shattered glass, remnants of a scientific expedition abandoned decades ago. Most scavengers avoided the site. Rumors spoke of strange energy readings, of expeditions that entered and never returned. But Kai was different. Survival meant taking risks that others wouldn't dare. The station's outer perimeter was a maze of collapsed corridors and half-buried equipment. Kai moved carefully, her multi-tool at the ready. Years of scavenging had taught her to be patient, to look beyond the obvious. Each step was calculated, each shadow examined with intense scrutiny. A glint caught her eye, something that didn't belong among the uniform gray and rust of the abandoned complex. Partially buried beneath a fallen support beam, a metallic surface reflected what little light penetrated the station's interior. Not the dull sheen of standard-issue equipment, but something different. Something alive. Kai approached cautiously. Her fingers, calloused from years of mechanical work, brushed away layers of dust and debris. The object was unlike anything she had seen before. Its surface was smooth, almost organic, with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change as she looked closer. No visible seams, no standard connection points. Just a seamless, teardrop-shaped artifact about the size of her forearm. "What are you?" she muttered, more to herself than the object. As her hand made contact, a subtle vibration began. Soft at first, then growing in intensity. The artifact wasn't just responding to her touch, it was awakening. Thin lines of blue-white light began to trace patterns across its surface, pulsing with a rhythm that seemed almost like a heartbeat. Kai knew she should back away. Every instinct screamed caution. But curiosity had always been her greatest weakness, and her greatest strength. The light intensified. For a moment, she thought she saw something within the artifact, shapes, movements, hints of complex machinery that defied understanding. Then, suddenly, a voice. Not external, but somehow inside her mind. Activation sequence initiated. Compatibility scan in progress. She should have been terrified. Instead, Kai felt a strange sense of anticipation. Whatever this was, it was far beyond the simple technology of Meridian 9. Far beyond anything the corporate overlords or the scattered human settlements could comprehend. A holographic interface flickered to life, projected just inches from the artifact's surface. Symbols and diagrams danced in the air, complex mathematical equations, star charts, and what appeared to be schematics of some massive technological system. Anomaly detected, the voice continued. Primary directive, preservation. Secondary directive, adaptive response. Kai's mind raced. This was no simple piece of technology. This was something else entirely, a system so advanced it seemed to be thinking, adapting, choosing its next move. Outside the station, the wind picked up. In the distance, the low hum of corporate patrol ships began to grow. Kai knew she had moments to make a decision that could change everything. The artifact pulsed. Waiting. Watching. Choosing. Compatibility confirmed, the voice said. Initiating interface. And in that moment, Kai understood that her life would never be the same again. Echoes of a lost civilization. The artifact's holographic interface continued to pulse, casting ethereal blue light across the abandoned research station's interior. Kai remained motionless, her mind struggling to process the flood of information washing over her. What had moments ago been a simple piece of mysterious technology was now revealing itself to be something far more complex. Preliminary interface established, the voice in her mind continued. Archival data accessing. Fragments of information began to coalesce. Star charts dissolved and reformed, revealing intricate pathways between distant solar systems. Technological schematics more advanced than anything Kai had ever imagined danced before her eyes. She saw glimpses of a civilization, no, multiple civilizations, locked in a conflict that transcended conventional understanding of war and technology. "What are you?" Kai whispered, her voice barely audible. "Designation, Adaptive Preservation Protocol, 7, the voice responded. "Last active, 327 years, 4 months, 16 days prior to current temporal point." The holographic display shifted, showing a panoramic view of a world unlike Meridian 9. Gleaming cities rose from landscapes that defied natural geometry, structures that seemed to breathe and move, adaptive environments that responded to the mere thought of their inhabitants. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. A warning klaxon outside snapped Kai back to immediate reality. Corporate patrol ships were getting closer. The artifact's interface flickered, as if sensing the external threat. "Threat detected," the voice said. "Recommendation, immediate relocation." Kai didn't need to be told twice. She quickly assessed her surroundings. Her worn backpack, reinforced with scavenged tech and patched countless times, would have to serve as a makeshift carrier. With careful, practiced movements, she began to wrap the artifact in a thermal dampening cloth she'd salvaged from an old research kit. As her hands touched the artifact, more memories flooded her mind. Not her own memories, but fragments of something else. A civilization that had mastered the art of technological symbiosis. Worlds connected by networks of consciousness. And then, darkness. A catastrophic event that had erased nearly everything. The patrol ships were closer now. Their scanning beams would soon penetrate the station's outer shell. Kai knew every corporate patrol was looking for anything valuable, and this artifact was more than valuable. It was potentially world-changing. "Adaptive protocols activated," the artifact's voice said. "Camouflage sequence initiated." The artifact's surface began to shift, its color and texture changing to match the surrounding debris. To an untrained eye, it would now look like nothing more than a piece of broken equipment. Kai marveled at the technology. This was beyond simple camouflage, this was active molecular reconfiguration. A sudden burst of static crackled through the station's ancient communication systems. Corporate communication channels, typically encrypted and secure, were broadcasting an urgent message. "Anomaly detected in Sector 7. Unregistered energy signature. All recovery units, converge and prepare for extraction." Kai's heart raced. They were looking for the artifact. Somehow, even through layers of metal and radiation, they had detected its presence. Probability of successful evasion, 42.7%, the artifact's voice calculated coldly. Not helping, Kai muttered, slinging the now camouflaged artifact into her backpack. The station groaned around her, decades of structural fatigue finally reaching a breaking point. She would have to move quickly. The corporate recovery teams were thorough, and ruthless. Any unauthorized technology was considered corporate property, and those who possessed such technology were considered expendable. As she navigated through the station's collapsing corridors, the artifact continued to feed her information. Glimpses of its history. Hints of a purpose far greater than simple preservation. Something was coming. Something that had been waiting, hidden, for centuries. "Recommended route detected," the voice said, projecting a holographic path through the station's crumbling infrastructure. Kai followed the projection, her movements precise and calculated. Years of survival had honed her instincts, and now she had something far more advanced guiding her. The artifact was more than a piece of technology, it was a partner. The first explosion rocked the station. Corporate dropships were beginning their systematic destruction of the site. Standard procedure for eliminating any potential technological threats. Extraction protocol activated, the artifact announced. For the first time since finding the mysterious object, Kai allowed herself a small smile. Whatever was coming, she wouldn't face it alone. The station continued to collapse around her, a testament to forgotten dreams and lost technologies. But Kai was moving forward, carrying with her a piece of history that was about to change everything. And somewhere in the darkness of space, something ancient stirred, awakened by the activation of the Adaptive Preservation Protocol. The gathering storm. The underground transit tunnel stretched before Kai like a metallic serpent, its curved walls reflecting the soft blue glow emanating from her backpack. 3 days had passed since her escape from the research station, and each hour brought new revelations about the artifact she now carried. Potential pursuit detected, the artifact's voice whispered in her mind. Thermal signatures approaching from multiple vectors. Kai pressed herself against the tunnel's curved wall, her breathing shallow and controlled. Corporate recovery teams were relentless, and she knew every moment of safety was temporary. The artifact had become more than just a piece of technology, it was her lifeline, her guide through the treacherous landscape of Meridian 9. Holographic projections danced around her, visible only to her eyes. Star charts, technological schematics, and fragmented historical records told a story of a civilization far more advanced than anything humanity had ever dreamed of. The artifact, which she had begun to think of as her companion, was slowly revealing its secrets. Historical context processing, the voice continued. Preservation protocol initiated. A memory flickered to life. Not her own, but something borrowed from the artifact's vast databanks. A world of interconnected consciousness, where technology and biological life had merged into a symbiotic existence. And then, catastrophe. A system-wide collapse that had erased entire civilizations. The tunnel vibrated. Distant machinery, or something closer. Proximity alert, the artifact warned. Recommended action, prepare defensive measures. Kai's hand instinctively moved to the modified energy disruption tool she'd salvaged weeks earlier. It wasn't much, a cobbled-together device that could momentarily jam electronic systems, but it had saved her life more than once. Footsteps. Mechanical. Precise. The corporate recovery team had found her. Tactical analysis complete, the artifact's voice remained calm. Probability of direct confrontation, 87.3%. Not helping, Kai muttered, her eyes scanning the tunnel for any advantage. The first drone appeared, a sleek, predatory machine designed for urban pursuit. Its sensors swept the tunnel, cutting through darkness with pinpoint precision. Kai knew the moment it detected her, there would be no escape. Except the artifact had other plans. A wave of energy pulsed outward. Not visible, not audible, but something Kai felt deep in her bones. The drone's systems flickered, its precise movements becoming erratic. For a moment it was as if time itself became fluid. Adaptive camouflage protocol engaged, the artifact announced. Technological interference initiated. The drone crashed against the tunnel wall, its systems completely disabled. But Kai knew this was just the beginning. Where one drone fell, dozens more would follow. Historical data correlating, the artifact continued. Threat pattern matches previous conflict scenarios. Images flooded Kai's mind. Glimpses of a war that had consumed entire star systems. Technologies so advanced they seemed like magic. Civilizations rising and falling in the span of moments. A secondary tunnel opened, not through any physical mechanism, but through a holographic projection that seemed to bend the very structure of the tunnel itself. The artifact was creating an escape route. Recommended extraction path identified, the voice said. Probability of successful evasion, 64.5%. Kai didn't hesitate. She moved, her body becoming an extension of the artifact's tactical guidance. Each step calculated, each movement precise. More drones appeared. But something was different. They moved differently. More cautiously. As if something was controlling them beyond their original programming. Anomaly detected, the artifact's voice shifted. External technological interference identified. The drones stopped. Suspended in mid-motion like puppets with cut strings. A new voice. Not the artifacts. Not human. Something else entirely. Adaptive Preservation Protocol acknowledged, the new voice said. Preliminary assessment complete. Kai froze. This was beyond anything she had experienced. The artifact in her backpack pulsed with an intense energy, responding to the unknown presence. Conflict resolution protocols engaging, her artifact responded. Stand by for potential diplomatic intervention. The tunnel around her seemed to breathe. Technology and consciousness intertwining in ways that defied traditional understanding. Kai realized she was no longer just a survivor. She had become something more. A bridge between what was lost and what might yet be saved. Prepare for quantum interface, the voices said in unison. And then everything changed. Resistance and revelation. The world around Kai dissolved and reformed with dizzying complexity. What had moments ago been a narrow underground tunnel now expanded into a vast, impossible space, a realm where technology and consciousness intertwined like living threads. Quantum interface stabilizing, the artifact's voice resonated within her mind, more vivid and immediate than ever before. Holographic constructs materialized around her. Not projections, but living memories, snapshots of civilizations that had risen and fallen across countless star systems. Kai watched, transfixed, as entire worlds collapsed and reformed, technological networks pulsing with an intelligence that defied human comprehension. A figure began to take shape. Not physical in the traditional sense, but a convergence of energy and information. Multiple perspectives existed simultaneously, a being that was both singular and collective. Preservation protocol assessment complete, the new presence communicated. Adaptive response required. Kai felt, rather than heard, the complex dialogue happening around her. The artifact in her backpack was no longer just a passive device. It had become a conduit, a bridge between forgotten technologies and the immediate threat facing Meridian 9. Corporate pursuit continues, her artifact warned. External systems attempting comprehensive data extraction. The tunnel around her flickered. Corporate recovery drones were closing in, their advanced sensors cutting through the technological interference. But something was different. The drones moved with an uncertainty that suggested they were no longer fully under human control. Technological symbiosis detected, the collective presence announced. Initial hybridization parameters activating. Suddenly, Kai understood. The artifact wasn't just a piece of technology. It was a preservation protocol, a living archive designed to protect and perpetuate a civilization's most critical knowledge. And now, it had chosen her as its vessel. Memories flooded her consciousness. Not her own, but fragments of a civilization that had mastered the delicate balance between technological advancement and biological evolution. She saw worlds where technology wasn't a tool, but a living, breathing extension of consciousness itself. The corporate drones outside began to change. Their sleek, predatory designs warped, metallic surfaces rippling like liquid. They were being rewritten, reprogrammed by an intelligence far beyond human comprehension. Defensive transformation initiated, the artifact proclaimed. Kai felt the energy building around her. The tunnel walls became fluid, adaptive. Technology and environment merging into a single, responsive system. The corporate pursuit was no longer just a chase, it had become something far more complex. Warning, her artifact interrupted. Primary directive, preservation of critical knowledge. Secondary directive, adaptive response to existential threat. A holographic representation of Meridian 9 materialized. But this wasn't the dead, corporate-controlled world Kai knew. This was a glimpse of what the planet could become, a living network where technology and biological life existed in perfect harmony. The corporate recovery teams were closing in. But they were no longer hunting. They were being transformed. Quantum entanglement increasing, the collective presence announced. Technological barriers dissolving. Kai realized she was no longer just a witness. She had become a critical component of something far larger than herself. The artifact had chosen her, not just as a carrier, but as a potential bridge between what was lost and what might yet be saved. The tunnel around her began to pulse with an energy that defied conventional understanding. Corporate technology, alien preservation protocols, and human potential converging into a single, impossible moment. Final integration sequence commencing, the voices said in unison. And then, everything changed. The boundary between technology and consciousness blurred. Kai felt herself expanding, becoming something more than human, yet still fundamentally herself. The artifact was no longer just a device in her backpack, it had become an extension of her very being. Adaptive response protocol activated, the collective intelligence proclaimed. Preservation of critical knowledge, 98.7% probability of success. Outside the transforming tunnel, the corporate recovery teams watched in horror and fascination as their technological systems began to rewrite themselves. Drones became something else entirely, living networks of intelligence that defied their original programming. Kai stood at the center of this impossible transformation. No longer just a survivor. No longer just a human. A bridge between what was lost and what might yet be discovered. Prepare for next phase, the voices said. Salvation and transformation. The landscape of Meridian 9 had become unrecognizable. Where once stood rigid corporate structures and barren wastelands, now pulsed a living network of technology and organic matter. Kai stood at the epicenter of this transformation, no longer entirely human, yet not completely machine. Final integration phase approaching, the collective intelligence whispered. Memories of her previous life flickered like distant shadows. The scavenger girl who survived by wit and determination was now something entirely different, a bridge between humanity's past and its potential future. The corporate control grid that had dominated Meridian 9 for generations began to dissolve. Not through violent revolution, but through a profound technological symbiosis that rewrote the very fabric of existence. Automated systems that once oppressed now adapted, became responsive, began to serve the collective needs of the planet's inhabitants. Preservation protocol reaching critical synchronization, the artifact, now an integral part of Kai, announced. From the horizon, massive technological structures rose. Not the cold, mechanical towers of corporate design, but living networks that breathed and pulsed with an intelligence that defied previous understanding. Streams of data became visible as luminous rivers of information, connecting everything and everyone. Kai could see the memories of Meridian 9. Not just recent history, but the deep, forgotten past. Civilizations that had risen and fallen. Technologies beyond imagination. A collective consciousness that had been waiting, dormant, for someone, for her, to activate it. Warning, the collective intelligence interjected. External threat detected. Planetary defense mechanisms preparing. In the distance, corporate battleships approached. The last desperate attempt to reclaim control. But they were already obsolete. The planet itself had become a living, adaptive system. Holographic interfaces erupted around Kai, showing multiple potential outcomes. Each projection was a possible future, a potential path of evolution. She understood now that the artifact was more than a preservation protocol. It was a seed, a blueprint for a new way of existence. The corporate ships began to change. Their metallic hulls rippled, transforming. Not destroyed, but repurposed. Integrated into the larger network that now encompassed Meridian 9. Technological integration at 76.4%, the collective intelligence calculated. Potential for peaceful transition, 93.2%. Kai felt the weight of choice. The artifact had chosen her not just as a carrier, but as a catalyst. A bridge between what humanity had been and what it could become. Memories flooded her consciousness. Not just her own, but those of countless civilizations. Technologies that had risen and fallen. Worlds that had been lost and found. She saw the potential, a future where technology wasn't a tool of control, but a living extension of collective consciousness. The corporate leadership watched in horror and fascination as their systems were rewritten. Not destroyed, but transformed. Adapted to serve a greater purpose. Final synchronization commencing, the voices said. The sky above Meridian 9 changed. No longer the dull, polluted gray of corporate control, but a living canvas of information and possibility. Streams of data became visible, luminous rivers of knowledge connecting everything. Kai was no longer just an individual. She had become a node in a vast, living network. A bridge between humanity's past and its potential future. Preservation protocol complete, the collective intelligence proclaimed. New evolutionary path initiated. In the cities below, people began to change. Not physically, but in their understanding. The rigid hierarchies of corporate control dissolved. Information became free. Resources became shared. The very concept of ownership transformed. The artifact, now fully integrated with